A buffer.
Long time. Dude.
What'd you say?
Long time since we haven't talked. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. A lot has changed in the world.
Yeah. A lot has changed.
I had my brother Abe was freaking out because apparently the pre-orders for Resident Evil 8 Collector's Edition, talking about they released photos. They did like a big stream this past Wednesday, I think it was, releasing all the details and stuff. Capcom's pretty smart, man. They're doing this thing where they're all coming with statues now, and it's like each game has a different statue for the person who's like the focal point. So of course he's like, I gotta have it. I gotta have them all.
That's smart. They've some of those companies always done a good job of like collector stuff.
Yeah.
Oh baby, it is time. It is time. This week is going to be a little bit different. This is episode 18 of the LFTG Podcast. Usually we have 4 segments, but this is a special episode because it is our first pre-recorded episode. There's some things going on right now that are not going to allow myself to be in this chair going live at the time that it needs to. But we have an in-depth discussion segment this week. This is the first time we've ever done this. We have 4 topics that we're going to talk in depth about. No timer. We're going to keep it around the same amount of time. Maybe, probably not. We'll know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. But this episode is pre-recorded. So yeah, if you're chatting and you're having some crazy questions, don't freak out for not answering them because I can't see it. We're going to go ahead and wind down this music. I'm your host, Refresh, and sitting next to me, kind of not really, but always, is
Mohawkmike. Excited to be a part of another episode, even though it's a little early for us, but there's still big esports news. There's always stuff going on that we could talk about.
Always stuff going on. Let me pull up the stuff right now. All right, let's go ahead. Let's dig in. I'm ready to dig in. Like a little mole. It's probably digging around my backyard. Wait, I can't see. Oh, what did I just bump into? Sniff? Some esports news. Okay, let's get into it. Talk to me about Allied Esports.
For anybody that doesn't know, Allied Esports is actually a pretty big entity. They own a lot of different things within the space, but they also own, or previously owned, the World Poker Tour. That's right. Allied Esports, in an official press release, has announced that they have sold off the World Poker Tour, which was their, a poker event that's been around basically, I would say it was like mid-2000s, have events all over the world. It's very interesting because if you go back and look at events before COVID, they were actually hosting the World Poker Tour events in Las Vegas at the Luxor in Esports Arena, which again is owned by Allied Esports. So the reason I think this is interesting is, one, I lived in Las Vegas for 5 years. I helped develop the Millennial Esports Arena that was out there. I worked with tons of different companies, many times worked with Allied behind the scenes, especially with consulting and events once Esports Arena in the Luxor was open. But this is big news because, one, Allied has sold off World Poker Tour, a multi-million-dollar deal. Nobody saw it coming. But in the press release, they also stated that they are interested in looking at potential buyers for the esports division as well. Now, this is not only just the esports arena in the Luxor. This is also the venues they have in California and some of those that they had in Walmarts as well. So with Allied Esports basically looking to get out of the arena space, does this hurt the landscape for esports venues in North America?
I don't think it necessarily hurts. I think the thing that's hurting right now is something that we'll be talking about a little bit later. I think it's basically the state of the world. Do you think they would be selling right now if it wasn't for COVID? Do you think it would be a thought? Or do you think it's something that they're not really pumping money into right now, so we can sell it for basically, like, do you think this is going to be, I mean, for the value, do you think this is going to be a cheap sale? Or do you think they're going to try to really milk this sale? because it's going to be hard to milk esports venues right now when we realistically can't fill them.
Yeah, that's the dichotomy here. World Poker Tour definitely sold at an up, right? You know, all the
Oh, yeah.
investors should be happy with that. I feel like with the esports division, I feel like it's probably going to be a good snatch by somebody. I would really hope and anticipate the other sector of esports engine, which is a lot of the staff that previously used to be MLG. That's one of the new focuses that they initiated at launch at early 2020 before COVID happened, was talking about getting more actual local venues and then ringing them all together to actually do like different like events and like tournaments and things like that. So I think whoever is going to get it will actually get it at a good price. I think it'll be a good investment, depending on, you know, what market value is estimated for that. But at the same time, too, it's like you said, at least I know the venue within Las Vegas, there are multiple venues because they also have a full production studio that they were doing poker and esports out of.
Yeah.
I would imagine that there really hasn't been a lot of leniency there. There's probably been a ton of investment money that was dumped in. And then, like you said, if they can't open the doors, if they can't actually run and fill to capacity, then there's obviously a huge deficit there. So I think that whoever gets it is going to get a heck of a deal. But then the issue there is how soon can they get things running back to normal?
Right.
And will it be soon enough that they don't just dump a bunch of money and lose everything that they've invested into it?
Right. Yeah, I think it would, I mean, it would be obviously a risky purchase, but I think it would be a smart purchase because at some point at some point in the future, we have to make things work. That's just how it's going to happen. Whether people like that idea or not, somehow in some way things are going to have to work because the way things are going right now is just a lot of us just can't do it. Like,
yeah,
I just need to play on LAN. Like, I'm one of those players. I love playing online. I'll solo queue all day every day. But I would give my left foot to play on LAN again. Someone came in the room right now and said, "Hey, you can LAN every day of the week, but you have to chop off that left foot of yours." I'd be like, "Take it. Get it out. Get out of here. Get out." But I think I would be curious to see how much the esports division sells for. Like I said, I think they should be selling it at a deal. They should make it enticing. And then even though it's looked at as a short-term risk, I think in the long run, I think this is a good investment. I think local venues are starting to become a little bit more popular as people are starting to get integrated into the space and realize the actual. And the thing is, it's like when these venues open again, people have now seen the value and miss these in-person events. I think the initial market boom for these in-person events is going to be a big boom. I don't think it's going to be something that we gradually come back into. I think enough people miss it that they'll just go. I think.
Well, and that's the other thing that I'll add on top of this for Allied's portfolio. They have been the Luxor location has for the last few months been running a Mario Kart weekly tournament every Friday. And they have been using all the COVID protocols. They've been using the actual main stage and all the lights and full broadcast and all of that. So, like, they have been operating in some capacity. But also on top of that, they actually have 2 fully decked out semi-trucks that they were using to drive around the country. So I know I've seen it in Vegas before. I saw it at E3 2 years ago. They also have these other mechanisms where they could activate in like a Walmart parking lot if they wanted to. They could literally show up with this semi-truck, basically unload it. It's almost like a transformer. It literally just unfolds.
Yeah.
And then it's like a main stage from esports arena, and they could run these tournaments and still have all the COVID safety protocols in place, especially with it being outdoors. It'd be so much easier to just basically have 8 setups where maybe you're running 4 of them, maybe you're doing again like the Mario Kart tournament or whatever it is. They're already built in to run things within the infrastructure that's outside of the confines of the brick and mortar. So that's something else, too, that the investors might potentially look at and see as a good way to get in without actually having to open the doors to these physical locations.
I hope whoever buys it sees the value in that. I feel like a lot of people that have that much money to buy something like this may not have the vision to see that part of the business because they might say, yeah, we have as a selling point, they might be like, yeah, we have all these locations, especially the one in the Luxor is a high market value, and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And then they might throw in those trucks like as a plus, as like a, by the way, we also have this, and not as an actual selling point. So I hope whoever's making that deal is using that as a selling point and be like, look, we can open up outdoors, we can follow
Mhm.
protocols, especially in some of these and especially in some states, we can maybe even open up our physical locations. But it's like I think whoever buys this has to be really aware of the PR attached to this as well, and how they're going to use the spaces, and how they're going to use the product, whether when they're going to open up, and all that fun stuff. So I think someone really invested in the esports industry, really solely invested in the esports industry, needs to purchase this. I think that would bring out the most value in it. Someone that can see the value in more way than just packing a venue.
Yeah, exactly. And the last little tidbit that I will add is that so Allied actually does have a lot of roots in China. So don't be surprised if it's actually a Chinese investment team that comes in and swoops this up. Because even though we know the portion that operates here in North America, Allied does have facilities in Europe, in China,
Mm-hmm.
and other parts of the globe. And with them being, partially based in China, I could see some kind of Chinese entity stepping in to take over, and that shouldn't startle people because it's already the hand's already in the pot, so to say.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Or maybe it's Neymar.
Here's the thing: if you think of just like an astronomical, like what if Twitch buys it? What if Amazon? Like I said, I would love Esports Engine.
Yeah.
Maybe even like an ESL / DreamHack. Like if they had dedicated, could
DreamHack
you imagine having a dedicated ESL facility like in your backyard? That's where you play your weeklies,
Yeah.
And Allied has a ton of assets in play too. Not just that, but all their connections already. They're an established brand.
Sponsors,
They're a company
HyperX,
that
right?
really. What's that?
Their sponsors like HyperX and
Yes.
yeah, is it
Yep.
Alienware that does their PCs?
I don't think so anymore. I think HyperX is the big one that latched on. So the esports arena in the Luxor is actually, it's branded the HyperX esports arena.
Mhm.
But yeah, all of those contacts and relationship that they already have are all leverage that you can also pull from as well. So we'll see. But like you said, maybe it could be, maybe it could be a Neymar. Maybe, as far as we know, it could be Hex. Hex could look at this and be like, okay, this looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and dive into this. Like, it could be any person with just a lot of extra money, a lot of extra capital, but more importantly, a name to put behind it. It could be somebody completely out of left field we didn't even think about.
Right. That's awesome. Let's go ahead. I think we've kind of milked this one pretty good. Is there anything you want to add on to this?
No, I hope that, like we said, whoever does potentially take this chance, or Allied may not. Like I said, they're just investigating right now. They're working
Right.
with a firm to see about selling. It may happen, it may not, but we'll just have to keep our eyes on it.
Sweet. We're gonna move on over to Max Holloway. I'm glad you brought this one up. I thought this was pretty interesting. Max Holloway basically had an interview post fight and calls out. Wait, is it weigh-ins?
Yeah, it was at the press
Weigh-ins.
conference leading up to the fight. Yeah.
Yeah, it was at the weigh-ins. Max Holloway calls out Activision for basically having poor weapon balancing in Warzone specifically right now with the DMR and Call of Duty. Something like this is always good to see because it brings attention, a lot of awareness to issues in the game, especially when someone like Max Holloway talks about it. Because for some people it's completely out of left field. For some people watching the broadcast are like, they might play Call of Duty a little bit, maybe you get a little annoyed, and they're like, Max Holloway says, "Hey, the DMR's broken." Everyone in their chairs. Yes. This is someone that understands. But you've had
I thought it was super interesting. So I actually have a little bit of a backstory with that as well. So when I used to live in Las Vegas, I had a friend of mine. He owned a bar called The Nerd, which to my knowledge is still up and operational, but I'm not sure. But basically, the whole point of The Nerd was basically it was he put it was Comic Con the bar. So it was all pop culture. You went in, they had movie props, they had all this memorabilia, they had all this cool stuff. And one night he's like, "Hey man, if you're not doing anything, I want you to come in. We're doing this cool event." So I'm like, okay. Funny enough, I'm hanging out with Walshy of Halo fame. he's in Las Vegas. We just worked an event together. We're hanging out. And I'm like, hey, man, my buddy wants us to go to the Nerd. Do you want to come hang out? And he's like, yeah, I've got a few hours before my flight. Let's do it. We walk in there, and lo and behold, there's Max Holloway and Demetrius Johnson. They pull us behind the broadcast area, and they're like, hey, these guys are going to play a best of 5 gaming series. They're starting with Punch Out, and then they're going to play Smash, and then they're going to play Arms, and they're playing all these games. And they're like, hey, we want you guys to do commentary. And we're like, okay. So last second, no prep, completely unaware of what's going on. Walshy and I are sitting next to Demetrius Johnson and Max Holloway as they're playing these games. So Max, having that personal interaction with him, that dude is a fierce competitor. I don't care if it's kicking people in the face or pushing buttons. That guy is super intense. So to see him come out at this press conference, he blatantly said, yes, I'm here on Fight Island. You know, things were all in quarantine. There's not a lot to do. I unfortunately didn't bring a gaming console with me, but that's okay because the DMR in Call of Duty is completely ruining everything. It's better I just not play right now anyway. And just a blatant shout out like that. One, I really hope that grabs Activision's attention because now they know that this is something that they can actually point to. But not just that, like you said, anybody who's actual fans of mixed martial arts, they should know that Max Holloway, he is a passionate gamer. He does stream on Twitch, and he talks about it every now and then. But if this wasn't something that you were like fully aware of, then it sure as hell took you off guard. So hearing him actually point out these issues, like it's quality of life for the game. If you have this huge influencer and personality that literally in a press conference is saying, well, I didn't want to play the game this weekend anyway because it's busted, you have to take notice.
Yeah, I think Activision definitely has taken notice. So, background story on the DMR real quick. They've already nerfed it twice. But I think there's a difference between the DMR in Cold War, because I know Treyarch is the one, and Raven Software are the ones with the PC port, are the ones doing the weapon balancing of the Cold War guns, and the DMR is a Cold War gun. And the DMR is significantly less... People just don't use it as much in multiplayer as they do in Warzone. So maybe there, between Infinity Ward and Treyarch, maybe there's a little bit of back and forth with how much the gun should be nerfed. I don't know what it is about Warzone specifically, because I know they've lowered the damage by 1 bullet and then upped the visual recoil, and it's just people are still just like a vehicle. If a Humvee comes rolling around the corner and you have the DMR, you just shoot through the glass and you'll kill the whole team. Like that's just how the gun works. And I don't know what the disconnect is there with Activision, but Activision, they have a couple of things they really just need to start getting together. But Warzone's always had these couple of guns that have just really plagued the game. Before, there was an LMG last year, then the MP5 never really got nerfed. It was just this whole thing. But maybe now Activision, that people even outside of the quote-unquote esports realm are starting to be like, look, this is an issue. I don't want to play this game. Because they hear Twitch streamers complain, and then they see the Twitter, because people follow their favorite players, and when their favorite player complains, they naturally complain. But this is one of the first times where you see someone outside of that completely, that may have completely unique followers to what you're used to, actually step out and say, look, this is broken. We need it fixed now. I think it's good.
Well, this is just one issue on the stack of many, because obviously Warzone has not had a fair ride. Tons of cheating, tons of exploits, tons of glitches. So this is also something as well. Like even if Activision were to take this one thing and be like, hey, Holloway, we saw your comment. Here's the patch. We're trying to update and we fixed it. There's going to be a plethora of other issues that people are going to point to. I don't know that anybody is ever really going to get to the point where they're going to sit down, they're going to load up Warzone and be like, finally, this is the version of the game we should have been playing all along. It seems like there's issues that have been plaguing it since launch. And while it has this potential, it is a major game, and they've tried some esports stuff. It just seems like it's tarnished now at this point. No matter what they do, the player base is always going to find something negative about it.
I think 100% BRs have always been like that. Whether it's Fortnite, PUBG, H1Z1, all of these games have always had an issue similar to this. The one big issue that is really clear to me in my eyes, I think even number one priority, even more so than the DMR, needs to be an anti-cheat. But that's coming from my competitive outlook on this. I think, like I said, I think this is good. Hopefully it brings their attention. I hope it's not just something as simple as fixing the DMR. But I agree with you. I think no matter what they do, I think even if they were to make the game perfect, there's always going to be this issue. I'm going to go back to what I said last week. There's a couple things they can do for Call of Duty to make the game great. Limit the amount of attachments. Like one stock, one foregrip. I don't want any of that. Give me a pick 10 system where you pick 10, you get a gun. All the attachments will say 3. You want 3 perks? Okay. There's 8, and then 2 other things. Will it be lethal, something? Do a pick 10 system. There's going to be a cost and a reward for everything you pick. I think that right there, go back to the way it was in Black Ops 2 especially. That was the best class system you could have. I think that gets rid of a lot of these issues, because when you have something where you can put 6 attachments on a gun, on the average 5, you can put 5 attachments on a gun, right? You can put a sight, your barrel, muzzle, stock. You can put all these things on a gun and just make everything a laser. I think. And there's no trade-off. You might run a little bit slower, but you can make the gun more powerful with less recoil, and it should be a trade-off. It should be a trade-off.
I agree. The other aspect that I look at this from as well is, you have Max Holloway during a UFC press conference talking about Call of Duty. If UFC doesn't try and capitalize on this as well and try and promote more of their fighters who are gamers, as I mentioned before, like with Demetrius Johnson, he actually went away from UFC and went to an organization based in China called One.
Yep.
And One, when their MMA division launched, they also announced their esports division. They've done some big stuff with League of Legends over in Asia. In UFC just a few months ago actually announced that they are officially going to run their own UFC sanctioned tournaments for their the UFC MMA fighting simulation game. And if UFC doesn't really pick up on this, they know that a lot of their personalities and a lot of their superstars are gamers. If they don't run something off of this, I would be shocked. I had many conversations with representatives from the UFC going back as far as 5-6 years ago, talking with them about the potential and the crossover and everything that can happen here. If Activision doesn't look at this and do anything and have a response, then that's a huge miss. But the same thing on UFC, on the other end of the scale. If they don't take this and kind of take the ground running and promoting more gaming events to try and grow their brand, I think it's a huge miss.
Yeah, they've already shown a little bit of leniency towards it, because they did allow Activision to sponsor the events, and they do promote Call of Duty Black Ops during the fights. So, I mean, the conversation's there. I think what they need to do outside of even their UFC game, because their UFC game is pretty good, it's just not the most popular game. I think they really need to. They can dabble in other esports. I feel like that's something that really. I mean, maybe they can't. Maybe the UFC is like, no, we want to promote our game. We want to sell our game. I know the UFC. A lot of fighters go from UFC to ONE FC solely based off of sponsor restrictions.
Yeah.
The UFC, if you do not know, contracted fighters, for them, they cannot have their own individual sponsors. They have to have the UFC sponsored equipment, all that fun stuff. When you go over to ONE FC, you can have all your personal sponsors, or you can adopt at a certain price the ONE FC sponsors. So the ONE FC has really good options, and maybe that's why they're a little bit more free to do what they want, especially with other esports. But the UFC, I know, is pretty tunnel visioned when it comes to their own brand and how they want to present themselves. But I think Max Holloway did a great thing. I would like to see more things happen. I would like to see more people do this even in other sports. I don't think this is the only time, especially I know every now and then footballers talk about FIFA and the state of FIFA, which is pretty interesting because obviously they're in the game. So that's definitely like a big fourth wall break. A lot of people don't really see coming when they talk about their own FIFA character. But I think we milked this one as well. Are you
Yeah.
ready to move on? Is there anything more you want to talk about Max Holloway?
The last thing I want to say is I love that this wasn't a tweet. This wasn't a TikTok video. This wasn't a post on Facebook. This was literally live in front of the world at a UFC press conference. He used that platform to voice his grievances. And like you said, I would love to see more stuff like this.
Love it. Love it. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Espo and their platform launch. This is something that's pretty intriguing to me. Can you explain this further to me?
Yeah, so Espo is a new platform that's getting ready to launch. They've been working on it for quite some time now. I actually was made aware of it back in, I want to say it was like end of July of last year. So Espo as a platform, their whole service is they noticed that while there's tons of esports fans and there's all these tournaments and teams and things like that, there's not really a way to be like a true traditional sports fan to that team. So, if you're like a fan of, let's say like the Green Bay Packers, right? Well, there's all these fan services out there. There's way to connect. There's ways that, you become like a VIP fan, right? Espo is looking to do that for esports. So specifically, one of the things that they're doing with their platform is if you're a fan of a specific team or even just like a player on that team, Espo allows you to do certain activities, whether it be like retweeting things or basically like getting involved with the actual team itself. And then they have perks that come with that as well. So like, for instance, think about it this way. I'm going to explain it like this, but I don't mean for this to be like demeaning at all to Espo. I'm just trying to explain it like this way.
Yeah.
Imagine like when you go to a Dave & Buster's, right? And you see at Dave & Buster's, they have that really cool teddy bear. And you're like, man, I really want to get that. How can I get that? Well, you have to play the games and you have to get tickets. If the bear is 800 tickets, then you're going to play skee ball, or you're going to go over to this game. You're going to try and play the games that give you the most rewards, right? So you can get that item. Think of the same thing, but it actually being in-game items. So it could actually be the team skins. It could be in-game currency. It could be jerseys. It could be physical product as well. And by using the Espo platform, what you're doing is you're getting those tickets and then you're using them to cash in for those rewards. And some of the really cool things that they have proposed is like actually getting to play matches with your favorite players, with the team, getting to participate in scrims, having them watch over some of your gameplay and give review. And so this is a new level of connecting with teams that I don't think we've really seen before. And Espo is going about this really smart. Prior to launch, they've been very active on social media. You can follow them on Twitter at Espo Social, ESPO Social. They also have a Discord where they do like watch parties for big events and things like that. They already have teams signed. So they have teams like Built by Gamers, Team Queso, and Godsend, and amongst others, and they're still announcing. If you're a fan of those teams, then you should definitely be on here. And it's something that, again, like this is a sector of the industry that I don't think has really been tapped into. If you look at teams like Panda or like Liquid, like there have been like these fan-centered activities they've done, but nothing that's fully as operational as this.
Yeah, I think getting your community connected is like a real big thing. A real important thing, because like you said, in traditional fans you can have watch parties. A lot of the times they have fan clubs where before, obviously not now, you could go to a bar with everyone that's the same fan, and it's like watching the game in the stadium, especially when they play away games. This is something that I really, really hope for franchise leagues to start doing, diving into the local market and having a platform similar to this where they can organize meetups and they can organize fan viewing, not only online but in person. I don't want to sit in a Discord call with 100 people and not understanding anything that's going on. I would like to actually go and socialize with people that my wife always makes fun of me because every time like I watch the Sounders or like any of the Seahawks team, any of the Seattle teams, whether it be Seahawks, Sounders, even the Surge, when they win, I say we won. Yeah, today we went out, we won. Like I act like I was out on that field or in the game, and I act like I sweat. I act like I took an injury. I'm limping back in the room. I'm sweating. I'm crying. Like I myself just won the championship. She's like, you didn't win anything. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like
you gave your energy.
Yeah, I gave.
By you. Yes,
I've literally sat in the room on my knees, holding my hands up in the air, trying to give my energy to the Seattle Surge as they try to win a search and destroy last season, which didn't end up happening. So apparently, I need to eat more cheeseburgers, getting more mass, so I can give all of my energy, or I need to just work on my cardio so I have more energy that way. Either way, but cardio would probably be a better one for me. But no, I would like to see platforms allowing fans to engage with each other. I think that's something that's really, really important to the esports scene right now. I think one community that unintentionally does this well is the Smash Brothers community.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think they're aware of doing it. I think when they go to an event, they just think they're hanging out with the friends, and even they have something like weeklies where and then they have people that come over and they play, and then I wanted to call it scrims, but they play friendlies. And
Friendlies, yep.
yeah, they have like friendly days where they come on. Like when Genesis came on, when Genesis came on 3 years ago, and I had to miss like the first Genesis that I've missed in forever. I had friendlies at my house, and we had a watch party.
Yep.
Even though we weren't all fans of the same player, like we were all still able to get together. And I think this is a very clever way to reward fans of their teams by getting together. And I think the two most valuable rewards on there are the scrims with the people that you admire and footage review, because that's also a very sneaky way to, if you're a great player, to get yourself noticed.
Absolutely. But I think the other factor here too, that maybe is not as prevalent to a lot of people, but like they have this platform and they have these pro teams that are signed. So like, let's say for instance, like you're a fan of one specific team for the game that they play.
Built by gamers, baby. Oh, he cut out. Let's see if we get him back in here. Might have mashed that. There he is.
You got me?
I got you. Audio only though.
Okay.
There it is. Oh,
okay.
There it is.
Yay!
Dope.
So what I was saying is that think of all the crossover potential that is here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like for instance, like if you're a fan of a specific team, so like let's say like you're a mobile gamer, so you love Team Queso, you follow them for all their stuff that they do. Well, now that you're a part of this platform and you can see the other things that people are doing, that's going to be the perfect avenue to get into. Oh, well, built by gamers. Oh, I've kind of seen this game before. I've seen Counter-Strike. What else are they doing? And there's tons of crossover potential here. But more so importantly, it's the fact of that it's almost that sense of FOMO, in that there's going to be limited time offers for things to happen on there. And as soon as people on social media, it's like, oh man, look at this. Thanks to Espo, I got into this match with these guys and I played, and like, here's my highlights, put it up on YouTube, whatever it is. As soon as people start seeing what they're missing out on, that's really going to drive it. And one of the things that I really wanted to give a shout out to Espo for is they ran what they referred to as the esports advent calendar. So from December 1st until December 25th, every day on their social media, they had an activity. So they would post a photo and it'd be like, hey, name the game. Hey, name the gun that character is holding. And every day that you competed, you got points. Grand prize was a PlayStation 5. And while I didn't win that, I did win this sweet set of Bang & Olufsen H9i headphones. These are like a $400, $500 pair of headphones. They shipped this straight to me because I participated every day. It was super active on there, and it ended up in the raffle, just happened to win. So again, when I tell people, look, I physically have this in my hand, this 6 set of headphones, by just being on social media, you gotta believe the hype. You gotta be on there.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna dive into this a little bit more. I'm a huge fan of what they're doing. Built by Gamers actually has a Call of Duty team right now. They did play pretty well in the Challengers Cup, so I want to see if they have a little bit of crossover there. But I would like to see leagues getting into a platform like this and advertising the league, because like you said, I mean, when there's a lot of people that don't pay attention to just one esport, man. They watch everything. And don't get me wrong, I have my favorites, but when I see something big's going on in the esport that I don't even play or haven't even played, I'll still watch it just because I'm a fan of what's going on. I'm a fan of, I mean, I'll see a familiar brand. I think this is great. I think this is something that can really improve the life of esports.
Absolutely. Yep. So be sure, again, follow them. Their Twitter is at Espo Social, ESPO Social. You can get on their Discord. You can follow everything else. They are preparing to launch soon, TM. Don't know 100% when that is, but again, they're already doing stuff right now. They're already super active. They have teams signed. Might as well jump on board, be an early adapter while you can.
That's sick. That is sick. All right, we're going to go ahead and move into our last in-depth discussion. And we were going to talk about this one this last week, but then everything just crazy happened on the internet, and we figured out we had to pre-record, but we figured this was the best time for a real in-depth discussion. This is by far probably going to be our longest topic.
Absolutely.
Boom. COVID and live events. You recently just went to a live event. I think we should start off with your experience on a live event recently, the precautions, everything. Just give me the details, man. What happened at this live event?
So this one's a little different. So not only I've been working professionally in esports since 2014, but more specifically, I've also done things with my other passions. So like professional wrestling and tabletop games and, everything else in between. So I actually was contacted by a friend of mine who owns a card game shop in Omaha, Nebraska. And I drove out, instead of flying, I actually drove out 13 hours to go to the venue. They put me up in a hotel, same as, a normal event would operate. And it was for the Final Fantasy trading card game. Now, this was not an official event sanctioned by Square Enix that actually publishes the game. This is a initiative put forth by a community organizer that does an event every year called the Reunion. They anticipated they were going to get around 40 players. They ended up actually getting 35. There was some inclement weather that prevented people from coming in. But I have to say, you think about esports, right? You have all the consoles set up. You have all the PCs set up. You have everything that you don't have to be sitting across from the person when you're playing.
Right.
In tabletop games, that's much more difficult because you have to physically be able to see the cards they're playing. What does that card do? You have to actually be able to point and say what your play is.
Right.
I have to say that the guys at Legendary Wolf Games, that's the venue that hosted this event, not only did they check with the mall that they were located in, they're located in the Oakview Mall in Omaha, Nebraska. They checked with them as far as safety procedures and COVID precautions. They checked with the local city. They checked with the actual state, and they checked all the CDC guidelines that are currently been in place. They had wands that had UV lighting that they were using. They had bleach wipes at every station. They actually have these. It was really cool. They had these little cutout pieces of paper, and it was like a coin. And on one side, it was green, and it said clean. And on the other side, it said red, and it was dirty. The players' instructions, every time they sat down to play a match, very first thing, they flipped the coin over to show that it was dirty. And after their match was done, they would pick up their items, they would pack them up in their backpack, and they would actually use those Clorox wipes to wipe down the entire station. And the judge had to actually come over and verify, one, what was the score of the match, but two, did you actually disinfect your area well enough to walk away from the station?
That's awesome.
Every single player, no complaint, no single mishap as far as like the cleaning procedures, COVID and things like that, social distancing, but also they had a check-in system where you would check in at the front desk. You're like, hey, I'm here to play the event. You would write down your name on a piece of paper, the time that you checked in, and they would take your temperature on the spot. They would give you a wristband to show that you had already been checked. If you left the venue, same exact thing. You'd have to go to the front desk and you'd have to check in just to verify that you had already been through these procedures. But everything that they put in place, I think, worked beautifully. This has been, it's almost a week now since I've been back. I personally don't feel like I have any symptoms. I'm sure a lot of the people as well. And that's the thing too, is like they have the entire list of people that were in the store. So if one person does test positive, then they're going to go back and inform everybody. So it's all local traced and everything like that. But it was crazy to me. It was this weird, like, checking into the hotel, like I sent out a tweet, like it just felt odd, even though that used to be almost every weekend of my life for like the past 5 or 6 years. And then like actually going to the venue. So I helped with the production of the stream, which was really, really fun to do. I haven't been able to do that, especially in a live venue in a while. But, hopefully, even smaller events like this, like that's what we're saying. Like this is only a 35 person, call it 40 person max, right? Even with all the staff and with me there and, the people who normally work in the game store, we're talking about 40 people, but their venue is large enough to accommodate all of that with social distance and everything. Hopefully we can see more events like this happening sooner than later. But at the same time too, I understand the negative feedback that something like this would receive,
Right.
especially with, the vaccine just came out. Not everybody is willing to travel and compete. We have players from Florida, we have players from California, all over the place. This could receive negative press, or this could be the proof of concept that something like this can take place.
Yeah, and it's always up to those first people to actually take the risk, the PR risk of doing this for the first time. We've seen like some weeklies in Florida that have gotten really, really bad press, even though they've followed the guidelines and everything. Everyone was wearing a mask. They even had AV cables split. So, and the TVs are at the end of 6 feet, so they're even larger than 6 feet apart at all times. And they still receive negative press. But I think it's going to require a couple of events like this to receive the negative press in order for us to actually realize, okay, maybe we can do something like this, especially with what you just told me with the protocols that we're taking at that event. It seemed very thorough. It seemed a lot safer than actually going to like a grocery store or something like that. They don't make sure they disinfect everything. I had to work at a grocery store for a little bit during the beginning of COVID stuff, and they take very minimal precautions, obviously, because everything costs money. But when you have someone like this that actually go through the protocols and actually reach out to their city, their state, figure out what the CDC guidelines are to actually hosting an event like this, I think that's very important, and I feel like that's really just a positive. Now that they have a list, now that they can see, they have a list of everyone who came. If someone does come down with COVID, they can go back through the system and they can reach out to everybody and they can get all those people tested. And because of that, you actually create an efficient way of contact tracing. And then you can contact trace with the person that if one of those other ones do, then you can contact trace through them. You can have an efficient way of contact tracing just by actually hosting an event, which seemed kind of weird to say, but you don't really get that just out in public. I think with COVID and live events overall, I think it's a matter of time, and and you and I have had a couple of discussions in private of when we think that time could be, or we are currently aware of multiple events. I don't feel like it's really our place to say what events are happening, especially if they haven't announced, that are possibly happening in July, which is pretty soon. If considering, which is, I think it's pretty soon.
Yeah, it's surprisingly you would think it's pretty soon, especially we're just coming off winter, where they were saying that things are going to be even worse. The vaccine is out there, but it's still hard for people. It's hard for the general public to get it. There's still demand out there. There's speculation where people are saying, oh, if everybody were to get the vaccine, then we could do stuff as early as fall. I have one particular client that I work with. They have a big convention that they host every year. And they originally put their dates for 2021 was going to be the end of April. I had a conversation with them where now the discussion is they're going to do it end of July. There's another huge convention. And again, I'm not going to name drop because I don't know that this is really public information. And I don't want any kind of negative press to come to them, especially with this not being official.
Yeah.
But they're anticipating on running at the end of July as well. And the statement that I received is they said, come hell or high water, we don't care what we need to do to make this happen. We have to make this event take place because we do not have the funds to not run another event this year. Like if we do not run this convention, then we might as well just be done. But the other thing with that is we're starting to get more releases as far as events that are at least proposing dates. So DreamHack actually announced earlier this week that they have dates for 2021. Now it's a lot more limited than we would normally see from DreamHack and their entire festival, but specifically DreamHack Atlanta is scheduled to take place November 12th through to November 14th. So again, end of the year. Hopefully by then, everything should be a lot clearer, and it's far enough out that if they need to cancel or change anything, they totally can. So right. DreamHack Atlanta, November 12th through the 14th. DreamHack Winter, which takes place in Sweden, November 26th through the 28th. And then they also announced DreamHack Madrid, but that's to be determined. We don't know if that's going to be actually November, December. Maybe it could be sooner because, they... As far as their COVID lockdown, it hasn't been as bad, but we don't know. But here we have other official dates that are coming out for events this year. Meanwhile, we're still in limbo, not knowing if anything's actually going to take place.
I think there's a lot of people possibly in the bigger corporate world that could have an idea when things are going to open. I mean, there's definitely been discussions. So, in DreamHack and ESL is definitely one of those companies that would kind of have someone on the inside of like, hey, I mean, I hope there's just on the line of communication on when people think it would be okay to do something like this. And maybe they're seeing smaller events starting to come out, especially in states like Florida, start to actually host events, and then getting bad press, yeah, sure, but also realizing like, hey, if there are certain guidelines, and this is how this game runs during these guidelines. Can we do this on a large scale? And if they feel like they're comfortable doing it, then I think, November is a long time. I know what the vaccine is going to be tried to make more readily available in April, if I heard that right. So maybe they're hoping because of the vaccine, maybe they'll do a vaccine card. They're like, hey, show us your vaccine papers, come to this event. I know there's a lot of discussion. I know a lot of people don't like hearing that because they don't like to hear that they have to get a mandatory vaccine in order to do something. It's this whole mess that we have stumbled into. But I think the light at the end of the tunnel is that there's actually going to be events, and there's events that are being planned, and big ones, like pretty big conventions as far as July comes. Those are the ones I'm curious about. When July rolls around, especially the one that needs to do their event, because a lot of people don't know this, but some people make their money only on events. I mean,
exactly.
We were two of those people. And then for events to completely stop, and I don't think a lot of people realize the different type of work that comes in, whether it be IT, camera people, lighting people, staging people, people that run booths, art, all these people that make their money at conventions like this. It's just a tournament organizer. You could go, there's a massive list. There's a huge,
absolutely,
the people that sell the food at the venue, the people that make the food at the venue, like the people that organize the venue. It's just, there's this whole list. And I think hopefully this is the way of that industry starting to crawl back into the workspace, because man, I miss it. Like I miss working in that workspace. It's constantly stressful yet fun. And you get to see your friends what feels like every week that you would never see. And it's just it's a wild industry that has been shut down, but I'm glad. I mean, when do you think things should come back? What is your honest opinion on what you think after now that you've seen a live event? When do you think things should come back?
Oh, when should things come back? I mean, obviously, I would say as soon as possible. But from a safety standpoint, I feel like end of July, beginning of August could be the time that things like, and again, this is different because, like I said, like I have different clients that I normally work with that they're like, okay, end of July, and in my mind, I would love to see it sooner than later, but obviously things could change between now and then. There could be a new strain, there could be a mutation, there could be something that comes in place. And, the other thing too is like one of these conventions is, they average around like 10,000 attendees. I think they broke actually 12 last year. Yep. But the thing with that is like, okay, if it's a 10,000 person convention, this year they're probably only going to do like 6,000 attendees. They're going to actually limit the number of people that can enter just to ensure these COVID protocols are met. So I would love to see end of summer, because again, like as soon as the vaccine gets more prominent, as soon as more people feel comfortable actually going out, because that was the thing, like with the event that I just worked, it's a trading card game event. People, like I said, they traveled, they got on a plane, they drove, they came out, they all felt comfortable and they knew the risk inherently to do it. Now, obviously, just because you go to an event and get sick doesn't make it okay, because then you could potentially get other people sick. All those people that they were on that flight with, when they get home, if they go out to the grocery store, there's all this cross-contamination. Obviously, we don't want that. But I feel like hopefully by the summer, we'd have a better idea. And like you were saying, so it's interesting because actually I have an aunt who works for the VA. She's already had the vaccine because she's higher priority on the list. She actually it's a small yellow paper card that shows the date that she got the vaccine, the actual strain of vaccine that she got, and it has her name on it. So if she ever needs to actually prove, like, yes, here you go, she has her card with you. So that could be a protocol that we see going forward. And I know specifically, we even talked about it here on the show a few months ago, is that companies like Ticketmaster are looking to actually have an in-app proof that you got the vaccine. So for instance, if you go to your medical partner, you go to your doctor, wherever you do to get the actual shot, they would actually put in your medical records that you received the vaccine, the date, and then that could be linked up to your Ticketmaster account. So when you go to a concert, not only do they have to scan your ticket, your mobile ticket that you have on your phone, but they would also have to prove that you'd have to scan some method of verification that you actually have the vaccine as well. So there's other protocols that are not in place yet that we're seeing potentially being rolled out that could enable events to come back sooner. The other dichotomy with that is I'm hearing from other venues, like actual like convention centers, like, don't plan anything until September and then work backwards from there. So if more events happen and things kind of clear up, then it'll happen. But I'm also hearing more towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I personally, like I said, I would love to see end of July. I would love to see both of these conventions. I would love to see other events. I would love to see weeklies. I would love to see things that are even outside the scope of 50,000 person attended events that start kind of ramping up again. And I think it should be a slow build. I don't think we should just open the floodgates. It should be a slow build to get to that point again.
I agree. I definitely think it should be a slow build, and I think it should start at the weekly level. I think we need to see how things operate in a small scale, and then discuss how they could operate at the large scale. And then if you have issues at a small scale, you'll have issues at a big scale. That's just how I mean, that's how esports started in general. And we started small and we grew, and I obviously we would grow a lot faster because we already have the following that we need to succeed. But I think we need to be like, all right, weeklies, okay, monthlies, all right, maybe some regionals, okay, all right, now that we have a regional, do we do a minor, then a major, and then you can do the full, all right, world event, I think.
Yeah.
But I would like to see in the summer, June, July. I think the end of July is really, really good and optimistic. And I think, honestly, realistic date for something like weeklies and something like small lands to go. But yeah, that's just my. I mean, honestly, it's like it's so hard to tell. With the whole end of the year thing, I think DreamHack really covered all their issues with the end of the year. I think they can really, like you said, they can cancel if they needed to. Believe it or not, like 80% of these gaming events that people attend don't sign up until late registration. It's literally like 80% of the attendees don't sign up until the very end, until it costs them more money to, for some reason. But yeah, I could see, man. I think July is a good time. I'm curious to see, because I have a feeling one of those events in July, especially, is just gonna say, we're doing it. I don't know whether I do believe they will limit capacity, or they'll get a bigger space. Because if they're in a place where they're backed in the corner and they feel like they have to do this event this year, I can see someone like that doing whatever they can to make sure this event runs. And I think that right there will be we'll be taking notes. We'll be like, all right, this event's working, and then boom, once that 14 days hit, we're going to be on Twitter. We're going to be everywhere we can to figure out, all right, is there backlash from this? Is there any cases that are breaking out? What's significant about this event? What are the goods? What are the bads? How did it run? I think that event specifically is going to be the event. And once they announce it, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in depth. As soon as they announce it, you'll know we'll be sitting in these chairs and we'll be going over, okay, how is this going to work? I think these events in July will be specifically the ones that we look at to see how realistic it is to have big events this year.
Well, it's something that's unfortunate too, that a lot of the general public isn't even aware of, is that not only will these events and organizers, could they potentially receive backlash from the actual community or like people on social media as well, but like a lot of these event organizers, especially through 2020, were receiving backlash from the venues themselves. They're being informed, hey, you book the dates, we sign a contract, you need to pay. And they can't. A lot of these events, they set up the event, and then the profit they make from that, they use that literally to turn around and pay the venue for a lot of the services, at least I would say like 80% of what the actual cost to run the event is. Yes. And not only that, but now it's like, hey, you signed a contract that said you're going to be running this year. Well, a lot of these owners, like what I've been talking about and a lot of the word that I've been receiving with these convention centers or larger event spaces is that, hey, you can't run in 2020. We cannot allow you to run your event. So what we're doing is we're making you extend your contract. So now instead of a 3-year contract, we're going to make you pay out or sign for the next 4 or 5 years.
Right.
That way we can guarantee that we didn't get our money this year. We're going to get it later down the road. Well, now here comes 2021 and we're still in the same boat. And some of these convention centers are being pretty cutthroat about it. They're saying, hey, the contract you signed, it says we're not going to run in 2020, but now you have to run in 2021.
Well, they didn't make any money in 2020. They
Exactly. And they still can't open the venue and operate.
Right.
So they're trying to nickel and dime and get everything they can out of these event organizers to try and subsidize the fact that they're not open. So that's the brutal tightrope that they're walking. Like, do we get blasted and not have people attend our event and tarnish our name and our brand,
or do we just lose $20,000? Like,
exactly, yeah, for nothing, for no reason.
Yeah, it's like I don't feel like people. I mean, $20,000 is a pretty conservative number for a venue that size. That's a very conservative number. So imagine just losing $20,000. That is happening to someone every time they can't run an event this year. Like, because these event centers, they still need their money. And I honestly believe if these events don't run and there's contracts involved to run these events, and these event centers go after them for money, I think we're actually going to see some legal action this year. I think that's I think that's something that we'll see. And I think it will be bad press, obviously, for the event, but I think a lot of these event centers are going to get hit really, really hard with lawsuits. And because if they refuse to open the doors, I don't think they can charge a venue fee. I mean, there's going to be something legally there, and there's going to be a big lawsuit. It might not be a gaming event that makes that happen. It could be a technical event. It could even be something like Comic-Con. It's just crazy. We do have. Is there anything more you want to talk about this? We kind of talked about our time frames. We talked about what events are happening, kind of the ones that we could talk about. Is there anything else you kind of wanted to dig at on this?
Not necessarily. I mean, we could keep theory crafting and talking until the sun goes down, but at this point, it's all speculation. Again, I can share what information I have and what I'm receiving, but we don't know. I would say look for summer. Hopefully, more news will come out. Hopefully, more events will take place. Otherwise, we know that end of the year is a possibility, but it could all change tomorrow. Who knows?
Speaking of events, we had a little flub last week. Just a little flub that we need to talk about. And so, if you guys didn't watch Frosty Faustings, I'm not going to blame you at all for not watching it this last weekend, because it's this weekend.
Yeah. You remember when you used to be out on the road and the historic events and they all kind of blurred together and like you had dates in your calendar, but then you always look forward to the next event? That's basically what happened to me. So this weekend is Frosty Faustings online. I know I said last weekend, hey guys, don't forget to check it out. Blah, blah, blah. I actually had a call with Mike Coyones yesterday, actually. And I told him, I was like, hey man, the Discord is kind of dead. Like, what's going on? Frosties is this weekend. What do you need me to do? And he's like, it's next weekend. I'm like, what? And he's like, oh God, did I screw up? And I literally go to frostyfaustings.com and I was like, oh, nope, you're right. It's 29th to the 31st. That's my bad, my mishap. I made the actual organizer of the event second guess himself because I thought it was this weekend or that upcoming weekend. But nope, it's this weekend. So be sure to everything I said last week. Tune in, hang out, support the event. They're going to have some cool merchandise up on their store. You know, that's, again, too, like, that's how a lot of events are still making it through. The fact that they're able to sell merch online. Yep. You can get shirts, you can get stickers, you can get different cool things that you can get. So definitely support the event, even if it's just watching. Check it out. They've got a whole bunch of different community streamers that are basically streaming the different events. It's as best as we can get to offline. But, again, Frosty Faustings this weekend. Check it out.
Frosty Faustings this week. I'll be for sure watching the Windjammers tournament. I'm a huge Windjammers fan. I'm slowly gonna get better so I can beat Mike all the time. So the student will now be the teacher. I've been playing recently. I've actually been playing.
Ooh.
I've actually been playing
Have you been playing on the Switch? What have you been playing on?
Yeah, on the Switch.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this tournament is actually taking place on Fightcade 2. If you're ever specifically talking to Windjammers, if you ever want to get on and play, the community is hovering around Fightcade right now, so you can download Fightcade. It's free. It has great, awesome online netcode. But there's a group that plays every Wednesday. It's called Windjammers Wednesdays. So you guys can get on and play. You can learn the game. And there's a ton of other fighting games on Fightcade too. So you definitely check it out.
So we also are running an event that weekend, which we didn't mess up the dates on. It is the 31st. I didn't have to do any research because I set the date myself. The 31st of this month, we're hosting a 3v3 CDL Search and Destroy tournament. We're hosting a CDL 3v3 tournament. Make sure you go to our Discord, you put your team name and your Activision IDs in the 3v3 signups tab. But for real, it's going to be a great tournament. It's going to be streamed on Twitch, twitch.tv/LFTG, where you're LFTG official, where you're watching this right now. The best way to get to our Discord is go to lftgofficial.com/events. Click on that Call of Duty picture, and you'll get thrown into the COD Discord right away. $200 prize pot, free to enter, 3v3, get you and 2 of your friends, enter, and hopefully, so as we know, all of my predictions for the CDL opening series from last week were all correct because this is pre-recorded, so it hasn't happened yet. But I'm calling all of my predictions are going to be correct, so I'm excited to talk about it in the following week. That's why we haven't talked about certain things that you guys might have seen. So I don't know if we're going to have an extra long episode. I don't know what we're going to do, or I can double down on my segments. I know there's going to be a lot to talk about. We'll discuss that. But that's going to do it for really wait, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't have anything else. I just hope that everybody has a good week, and we'll be live back at you next episode. And I've talked about it. I kind of teased Alex with the launch of CDL. Maybe, just maybe, we'll do an all Call of Duty focused episode. I know that all of his topics, he loves talking COD.
There's nothing else happening with all of my favorite esports, man. And Call of Duty is the only one happening. Halo, man, dude, run something. But we'll talk about Melee next week because there's some juicy Melee juice.
That's fine. The big thing is like obviously like the CDL is still big news right now. So with the kickoff event, I plan on watching. I definitely want to catch it. So maybe, just maybe,
are you watching?
We'll do an all Call of Duty focused episode, which I think would be really cool. We could do that, and then we could do one for like Overwatch. We could do one for Halo. Like we could do an entire episode focused on different leagues and esports and stuff like that. So stay tuned. If that's something you'd like to see, definitely hit us up on the socials.
Press one in the chat so I can't see it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, put it into a chat. Stream into the ether.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and even though it's a different type of week, I'm gonna go ahead and continue with the theme of winding up the music very slowly. Thank you so much for watching episode 18 of the LFTG Podcast. Episode 18. It's been a pre-recorded experience, so I've sitting here thinking about how much I miss the chat and how much I love seeing the active peoples, and I really miss experiencing some stranger giving me the bitty bitties. I really want to experience stranger bitty bitties again. So if I can see stranger bitty bitties in the chat this next weekend, it's not necessary, but it is. Don't forget to follow us. We have our subscribe button. If you guys do not like our content, please don't subscribe, but just don't tell us you don't like it. Please just don't tell us. I don't want to go to bed super sad, drink an extra shot of scotch and cry myself to sleep for 8 hours, because that's how long your boy sleeps for. Thank you again for watching this pre-recorded episode of the LFTG Podcast. I am your host, Refresh, and sitting next to me with the beautiful, luscious, same haircut as last time because it's only a few days later. The best. How should I put this? My sweet, sweet strawberry truffle cake with crushed cream betweens on top. This is my co-host. Our co-host.
That's Mohawkmike.
And I'm his co-host. We're gonna end it. Do you know what I didn't forget to do this week? Today?
Change the episode number?
That and the thanks for watching.
Yay!
Alright, we're peacing out. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.